Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Science, Planets, and Stellar Rhythms. This is Erik Roth, shamanic astrologer, here to talk about the upcoming month of January 2026. I'm going to have a full video that will be for the entire year of 2026. So if it hasn't been uploaded already, stay tuned and go to my YouTube channel to find that. It should be in the near the beginning, the top of the recent videos. Okay, so what we're going to be focusing in on is like how this year is going to start. What is the initial energy, the initial impulse of 2026 in this month of January? And there's definitely several things that are happening, including obviously the moons. But there is a Mercury, Venus, Mars moving into Aquarius. There's a Venus, Mars, Sun triple conjunction happening towards the early part of the month. We have both Eris and Chiron stationing direct, and a lot of conjunctions with Pluto because all these inner planets are moving into Aquarius and they're going to be conjuncting Pluto. So really sets the stage for a really interesting 2026. Um, we know that 2026, there's a Saturn-Neptune conjunction in February. That's going to be a topic I'll be visiting in the big 2026 video itself. Okay, so some changes here, like the main things to look at here, Eris and Chiron are the things that are stationing direct. They're changing direction. And then also Neptune will be moving into Aries in the month of January, back in Aries at the end of the month on the 26th of January. So it gets all the way to 0008 Aries, so still in that 0 degree range. Chiron stops at 2235 and then moves all the way back to 23 Aries, and then Eris just barely moving at all this entire month of January. Jupiter's continuing to retrograde, and so is Uranus. And Saturn is making progress um, back through the end of Pisces and will move back into Aries in February of 2026. And of course, Pluto, which is gaining steam since it last went direct a few months ago, is moving all the way to 342 Aquarius. All right. So yeah, one of the big things about this month that kind of highlights, I normally I'd put this probably towards the end of the video, but I really wanted to highlight this because a lot of these, you can see the Sun, Mercury, Venus, and Mars, they're all moving into Aquarius sometime this month. And Pluto is absolutely going to be in conjunction with all of them. And so this sets up for a very interesting thing because Pluto stands for an underworld. It's an underworld planet, shamanically speaking. And being in the sign of Aquarius, it shows sort of the shadow of like what is, it's a shadow of technology, of ideologies, of innovation, of like our romanticism with some of these things. And, also our projections about, our nightmares that are being projected upon various forms of various mediums and media, books and movies and other streaming services. Sometimes it's apocalyptic disturbances that are related to technological collapses. This doesn't mean it's going to come true, but that's some of the plutonic energy that can filter through the human collective here. So between the day for a little over a week, between January 19th and January 27th, you have all four of these three planets and the sun all in conjunction with Pluto between 319 Aquarius and 334 Aquarius. All right. I've been talking about this at times as Pluto goes deeper into Aquarius to do another video. I did one in 2023 that talked a bit about what this whole era is about, this generation of Pluto and Aquarius. So we're going to be, 2026 will be 3 years removed from that video. So it'll be good to have a check-in with that. Okay. First, First up on the docket, Mercury moves into Capricorn, and then right after 3 weeks later, it moves into Aquarius. But During this month, Mercury and Capricorn will have some aspects to the outer planets, and particularly the one that really focus on is when it conjuncts Mars on January 17th at 26 Capricorn. So that's the third in a series of three conjunctions between Mercury and Mars that started in October. The second one was November. It skipped a month in December and then conjuncts in January. So what does Mercury and Capricorn represent? So this is represents the mind around what serves humanity and is practical and can be sustainable. We can inquire about this. What do we have around in the material world that is not serving us, or is it simply collecting dust? What is serving us? What is just laying around and has been laying around for years and years that maybe doesn't have any value anymore, or something that's just taking up space and energy that we need to kind of clean out and purge out. It is also like, what can we seed for the future? Ideas, things that projects that we may want to create. We can think about this, from a mental, practical standpoint. This is a good time to put that into motion with Mercury and Capricorn. The very next day, Chiron stations direct. So the journey of Chiron Aries has been through kind of a rough period of humanity, or over the last several years. Just it moved into Aries like about 2 years before the pandemic started, 2018, I believe it was. So we're now kind of moving towards the end of this journey, uh, because in 2026 it briefly moves into the sign of Taurus and then retrogrades out. But then in 2027 it will move forward fully into Taurus. So we had opportunities over these last several years to heal the wounds of the past. I'm not saying this is that nobody's done this. Certainly, there have been segments of the population around humanity that have worked on this. But um, and this has to do particularly with the martial expression of Aries and sort of like the blindly going into a mission and purpose without having peripheral vision. That's a shadow and a wounding at times of what Aries brings in. So this still point gives us permission to go inward, teaching us about what wounds need to work personally and collectively, or what wounds need work, I should say. So what role can we play that could be of help not only to ourselves, but for humanity at large? And have we lost our sense of purpose? What have we overcome to get where we are? And what soul debris has been left out that hasn't received any cleaning up? So there's a lot. Chiron definitely deals with sort of like things that we need to clean up, things that we need to address, within on a soul level, and then not just on a personal level, but also in the community and in the human collective as well. So the next thing is we have this the last in a series of super full moons of the last few months. And it's a full moon that starts on or is takes place on January 3rd at 2:02 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. 1301 Cancer. And you can see here the circle down here on the bottom. We've got a lot of stuff happening in Capricorn. Venus at 12, the Sun at 13, Mars at 14, and then bookending that we have on one side Vesta and the other side Juno and Mercury, all in the sign of Capricorn. And you can see Pluto is right here and still part of the circle, and that will come in really more prominence as we get to the second half of January. So, what is the meaning of this full moon? Well, we can look also to the Sabian symbol of it. In Linda Hill's Sabian Oracle, she talks about this being a symbol of a very old man facing a vast dark space to the northeast. So this is sort of like can feel like it's a sort of a loss of faith, dying out of cultures and languages, staring into a void, kind of a symbolic of like blindness, but also shifts and the unknown and compass directions and stargazing, like being able to like peer into something beyond ourselves. Transition type of energy here. The interpretation around this, beyond what I just shared, about facing this deep chasm within that's populated by fears, mortality, and the unknown, can feel very plutonic in nature. So what lies underneath our conscious selves? The unconscious is massively larger than that of the conscious and the ego. The ego is just a small fraction of the totality of our identity, but it tends to take on an outsized role in the here in the real world. Um, a dark future doesn't necessarily equal a bad future. It's truly about the unknown, its gifts, lessons, and the potential transition beyond where we are currently grounded upon. This feels like a combination of both Saturn and Pluto energetically. So seeking purpose and direction, like an emptying out of things and welcoming in a new energy. So the thing we can add to this, especially with Cancer there, is a greater sense of compassion and empathy for the world around us, but also for ourselves. Treating us as and creating safe space for ourselves to be who we are. And so this full moon gives us that permission in our lives. Here it is in the sky. So if it's not cloudy, rainy, and so forth, this is a really powerful thing. It's actually lined up with the star Sirius, the brightest star in the sky. And there's going to be a video that's going to be posted about this particular full moon that Kaylin Castell and I did. And we talk a lot about the star Sirius in that video. So go ahead and look out for that to be posted soon. But you can see this full moon is also with Jupiter. So there's a strongly expansive energy with this because of Jupiter's presence and the star Sirius and its line up with the moon gives it this phoenix-like energy. And so we can tune into that energy, this bright phoenix-like energy, rebirthing from the ashes, a sense of renewal and purpose with that. So again, this full moon has all those qualities weave into it along with just being in the sign of Cancer. Again, this is in the very early morning, this image here of January 3rd, 2026, West Coast time here in North America. All right, so another thing that's happening on January 3rd, just hours later from the full moon, is that the Earth is at perihelion. And that means it's at its closest point to the sun in its annual orbit of the sun. And so it's about 3 million miles closer than it would be at the summer solstice or the June solstice point. So it's only a small percentage of the Earth's orbit, but it's still significant. And it does play a role, even if it's minor at this moment, in this current age of Earth, where, as far as the temperature differential between the close point and the far point. But the reason we have winter during this time is because we're in the northern hemisphere, is because the Earth is pointed away from the sun, whereas the southern hemisphere is pointed towards the sun. So that's why they have their summer at this time, and we have our winter and not as much light here in the northern hemisphere. And so this is going back to the perihelion. This is the orbit is more of an ellipse and not a circle, and that's why it's not perfectly round. And you can actually, I got this image from earthsky.org, and there's what you would call an article about when Earth comes closest to the sun every year in early January. So I encourage people to check that out. There's a lot of good information at earthsky.org. And as well as there's some, not about this particular thing, but at timeanddate.com as well. It gives you some additional astronomical information too. All right, so here we have this Venus-Mars-Sun conjunction between January 6th and the 9th. In a 4-day span, we have 3 planetary bodies including the sun, that all conjunct each other. And we have first starts off January 6th with the Sun-Venus conjunction at 16 Capricorn. January 7th, a Venus-Mars conjunction, the only one that we'll have until later in 2027. So, the Venus-Mars conjunctions have been rare lately, but we're just in a period where we're there, what we call kind of an underworld phase, or a storyline between Venus and Mars. Completely different topic about the pattern of Venus and Mars, but they're making this conjunction here behind closed doors, if you will, in the glare of the sun. So they're with Source, and but they're having a meeting there, sort of a round table and an integration and intimacy with Source itself. And it's through that energy, and then after their conjunction, when they start appearing in the sky visibly again in February and March, we'll get to see the after effects of what that represents. First Venus does in February, and then Mars in March. So it's really, this triple conjunction is offers up a powerful combination of the symbols of the feminine, masculine, and the solar impulse of Capricorn. And on a more basic level, it also relates to the potential challenges of trying to get things done and having an approach to getting things done where things may not quite work as well, like on a regular basis, when they're all hidden in the glare of the sun, particularly Mars and Venus. Mercury's also at that time hidden in the glare of the sun. Um, but it can also present opportunities as well, that to work with the raw truth within, as we may gather together to work out differences, to find a common plan to build a future. So there's something in relation to this that is the after effects of the winter solstice, December solstice point, that helps us to come together and to find, at its healthiest, to find where not only where we can have common ground aside from our differences, but something where we can actually build a future. So that I look at that as a sense of hope for humanity. But in this type of environment, you can have a lot of reactive energy in humanity. So it may not necessarily be very smooth, if you will. All right. So the chart I'm showing here is the Venus-Mars conjunction as of January 7th, 2026. And on January 9th, the Sun and the Mars conjunct at 19 Capricorn. All right, so then on January 11th, we have Eris stationing direct. So Eris has been in the sign of Aries since 1922 through 1926, when it first started to transition into the sign of Aries. And it's going to continue on for another 20 years between 2044 to 2048, and then finally fully enters the sign of Taurus. So we've still got another generation to go before Eris moves out of Aries. But in 2025, and now also in 2026, it was strongly in relationship and will continue to be in relationship with Chiron. And so Eris brings a strong, willful voice and intelligence to the table with Chiron. So it shows up where our wrongs need to be righted and the deeper truth needs to be heard. And typically it is through drama and some chaos that Eris is showing up, but it's not chaos for its own sake. It's more about making sure the good trouble starts. So Eris has this sort of like activism feel, particularly around the feminine and equality. And so, especially in the sign of Aries, it's very strongly expressed in this sign. So, this is adding to what we've been experiencing in the last year. And remember also that this dwarf planet Eris, played a significant role in what happened in 2020 as well, as it aspected the Saturn, Jupiter, Pluto triple conjunction at that time as well. All right, then on the 17th, we move into the first of the planets that moves into Aquarius. And Venus in Aquarius taps into the archetype of this sort of this ethereal wizard Athena wisdom type that brings a future-oriented nature of the feminine to humanity. It is in perceiving an objective outlook to where we are in the current age, along with expanding humanity's consciousness. How can we see ourselves without the emotional attachments? That in itself would present an incredible opportunity for all people to experience. In December, Venus will conjunct, sorry, in January, Venus will conjunct Pluto on the 19th of January at 319 Aquarius. So this is a day of reflective insight into the shadow of progress, technological development, excess objectivity, and only being like solely light polarized. So like the shadow of Aquarius, one of the shadows of Aquarius is the ignorance or the denial of the shadow itself within us as human beings. All right, then we go to this Mercury-Mars conjunction, this third in a series of three. Um, and this will happen at 2603 Capricorn on the same day that Venus moves into the sign of Aquarius. So it takes place at 11:40 p.m. Pacific behind closed doors, if you will, near the sun. And in that space at 26 degrees, it sort of draws in or opens up the deeper world to discover that even foundations can crack open and potentially reveal hidden treasures. So there's something about the secrets, the hidden treasures within the structures and systems that can also give us some thoughts about either reinforcing something or to build something anew, to like clear the energy out to plan out and create a new foundation. All right, then the sun moves into Aquarius on January 19th, and that will go on through February 18th. So it's always about a month long. So joining Venus, it begins to build the upcoming stellium in Aquarius in late January. So this sun adds fuel to the fires of innovation, science, equality, freedom of spirit, and objectivity within our lives. We can work with this sun in Aquarius by experimenting with ideas, practicing our relationship with freedom, and being more objective in our daily lives. So Aquarius can free us from the bounds or the bonds of the chains that we build for ourselves, the limits and boundaries that we've placed upon them. Cutting those chains, breaking free from it with idealisms, with egalitarianism, with this sense of greater observance of our life and of humanity. Then Mercury moves into Aquarius the very next day, January 20th, and it will stay in Aquarius until February 6th of 2026. So the mind of it represents the mind of Aquarius, which is Aquarius is an air sign, so it's has a lot there packed into the mind. So it perceives its worldview as free spirits and individuals utilizing their gifts to live their fullest potential without limits. It is a strongly cerebral, mental energy expression with a highly objective perspective. It tends towards seeing where things may break through from the trappings of material boundaries, limits, and cyclically freeing them beyond what is known. And you can see here there's four, at the end of January, Mercury has four conjunctions in Aquarius, including Pluto. First, the sun on the very next day, Mercury Sun conjunction at 136 Aquarius. A day later, it conjuncts Pluto at 323 Aquarius. And then 2 days later, conjuncts the asteroid Vesta at 643 Aquarius. And then almost at the end of the month, January 29th, Mercury conjuncts Venus at 1457. So it's almost halfway through Aquarius by that point. So yeah, Mercury seems to be playing a critical role here in our own connection to this Aquarius energy. And again, there's a pretty big stellium like there was in Capricorn, but this time it's happening all in Aquarius in the second half, particularly beginning in the 17th through the end of January, all in Aquarius that also carry on into early February as well. And then finally, we have Mars moving into the sign of Aquarius. And it will conjunct Pluto on January 27th. So more of this Aquarian energy, but with Mars energy included in this, it adds more action and so less there's still strong mental activity here, but there's an element of greater action involved, physical action as well with the Mars energy. So it's more about like not just being free, but objective actions and thoughts and being a champion of directing one's own life in their own unique manner. So Mars helps round off this by helping Aquarius get into the physical expression and to push forward with the concept of the idea into action. It is in honoring the quest to fulfill its mission to shift the world on its axis with breakthroughs and expansion of humanity's collective unconscious. In 2020, when Saturn briefly moved into Aquarius, began at the end of March of 2020 when the pandemic started. Mars joined Saturn at the beginning of April, and Uranus, sorry, not Uranus, but Saturn stayed in Aquarius for a few months after that through May and June, and I think in July it started to go back out. But what was really fascinating about this, it kind of had its own wrinkle to this, and this is again the Aquarius energy. It brought in the George Floyd death and the Black Lives Matter protests that really took hold and the spirit in that time as well in the middle of the pandemic. And there's this when Saturn was there, it had a lot to do with sort of this things that were unjust in the world, things that represented a lack of freedom, equality, and sort of a concentration of like of power and law into the hands of just a few. And so Saturn helped kind of or was trying to help bust that apart. And so Mars joined Saturn and did that back then in 2020. And so this is an opportunity here where you may get some additional insights about that time period that may show up, especially with Pluto showing sort of the shadow of all of that occurred back then 5.5 years ago. All right, so then we move on to Capricorn new moon. Um, that happens in the middle of all these other planets transitioning into um, the sign of Aquarius. January 18th is this new moon at 28:43 Capricorn. It's I think the fourth or the third new moon in a row that's at 28 degrees. So there's a series of 4 or 5 new moons that are all at 28 degrees of their respective signs. So this new moon, Capricorn new moon, is kind of like a solstice energy in the sense it's like new projects, seeding new forms, new ideas, new visions of what you want to build. So this is a chance for us to kind of connect into that wavelength there. So when I say solstice energy, I'm meaning December solstice when the sun bursts through at the Capricorn. Okay, and then as we get towards the end of the month, we have Neptune finally moving back into Aries. It was in Pisces. It moved into Pisces or retrograded back into Pisces in October of 2025. Now it's moving back in. So this is the second ingress in a year of Neptune going into Aries. And but this one is going to be for the long haul. So it'll be there for another 13, 14 years. Um, and the last time that Neptune was in Aries was during the US Civil War and the Reconstruction that happened after that. This was back in 1861 to 1875. So this is anytime an outer planet, especially ones that are way out there that move into new signs, really play such a powerful role in humanity's evolution, like Pluto moving into Aquarius a couple years ago, and now Neptune, and then Uranus moving into Gemini is going to be happening again in April 2026. So this ingress will go on all the way until 2038 to 2039. So we're going to have a lot of Neptune Aries energy. So the primary theme of this is about devoting to something worthy of defending and believing in, even if it turns out to be an illusion, which will tend to be discovered during its time. So it's also about to differentiate and to have faith and trust in your own direction, your own soul's intent, and at the same time involving the heart, that it's not just about the mind and logic and rationality, but the heart that makes us human as well that comes into play. Um, this cosmic emergence is rooted in the heart's evolution to merge with the divine unity energy, or at least take steps beyond the general adolescence of humanity on the whole. Combined with Saturn, and this is going to be a big thing I'm going to talk about in February of the February video, um, is Saturn's also ingressing into Aries on February 13th, and then eventually they conjunct on February 20th. Um, and so an entirely new reality and era is being seeded now that we're going to have coming back to the Saturn-Neptune energy that's going to be strongly involving and setting the table for not just 2026, but for years to come. All right, so here's the chronology of the month. You could see there's like a gap here to the 11th and 16th. Doesn't mean nothing's happening, but there's not any really major aspects here. I've got highlighted the Venus-Mars Sun conjunction period between the 6th and the 9th. I've got Chiron stationing direct on the 2nd, super full moon on the 3rd. And then as soon as Venus enters the Aquarius, this whole series of planets and the sun moving into Aquarius in conjunctions with Pluto and so forth. And then we get to towards the end of the month, we have a Mars-Pluto conjunction, Neptune re-entering Aries, and then on 29th, Mercury-Venus conjunction as well. So yeah, you're welcome to take a snapshot of this with a screenshot. And I'll also post this separately at some point later on and towards the beginning of January on social media, on Facebook, Instagram, and Blue Sky and LinkedIn. So yeah, thank you all for watching this. As an astrologer, I do this full time. I make a living doing astrology readings, teaching classes, doing astrocartography, mentoring, another kind of like astrological guidance, and different kinds of astrology readings, including astrocartography, um, solar returns, progressions, um, and looking at synastry as well between two charts and more. And you can find out more information about what I do at inspiralnexus.com, and also find me at mystaralchemy.com for classes that I taught with Kaylin Castell about the stars. And please like and subscribe if this is something you really enjoyed, and share it with a friend if it's something you think they might enjoy. So I look forward to seeing you again in the near future. I wish everyone happy seasonal holidays and solstice and the upcoming 2026. All right, everyone, take care.